Hello, baddest. Welcome. Still trying to adjust my camera a little bit. Hi, Shane. Welcome. Oh, this light in the background is horrible. Alright, I think that should do. I just gotta move it this way a little bit. Hi, Adriana. Welcome. Hi, City Camp. Welcome. Thank you for inviting followers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you too, or nice to have you here live. Hi, Sunny Scope. Welcome. Hi, Humpinski. Welcome. Funny name. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Because somebody just told me that they couldn't hear me. Hi, Drastics. Okay, so you guys can hear me. Hi, Mary. Welcome. Humpinski is nickname. Yes. All right, good. So you guys can hear me. Okay, good. Good, 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 good. Cool. Cool, cool. Because of your last name. Okay. Okay, that light in the background, the window is just like killing me. Okay. All right. Cool, cool. So we've got some people in here. So this topic was a topic I was going to talk about yesterday, but I had some issues yesterday. Hey, how are you? So I had some issues yesterday, unfortunately. My Facebook got hacked into, and so that was a whole all-day ordeal. And also, too, my mom was down with like the flu, so she was here. And my topic is actually about family. So I really couldn't talk about it with her here because it wasn't going to really. I mean, I don't want to say that it's not going to paint her in a favorable picture, but the topic does deal with family and how people with Lyme disease have to deal with a lot of disbelief from friends and family regarding their illness. That's why I titled this Invisible Illness and Family Dynamics. And it's not necessarily, it doesn't just pertain to family. It actually pertains to friends, family, healthcare professionals, just about everybody. Because this whole issue with invisible illness, goes across all these different, every different type of person. So basically, what I actually researched this. I like totally was like gung ho about it, and I actually came across a really good article. And I'm not gonna read the article. It's really really long. It's like, gosh, it's like 13 pages long. It's an academic. It's like an academic paper, I guess, and it's called A Narrative Review of the Impact of Disbelief in Chronic Pain. So, for any of you that have an invisible illness or chronic pain, something that people cannot see, I would highly recommend that you look this up online, print yourself a copy. It'll definitely make you feel better because this is an actual thing, and it's something that people are starting to research and look into, and it's becoming very very widely known that there is invisible types of illness and dysfunction, and just because people can't see that you're suffering doesn't mean that you're not. So someone here defined pain as whatever the experiencing person says it is, existing whenever he says it does. So pain is whatever you say that it is, and it happens whenever you say that it does. So it's sort of like a very, it's not a concrete, it's not a concrete, what do you call it, phenomenon, I guess. It's not something that is, set in stone, or that's exactly measurable, like with a blood test or whatever. So, pain is just something that if somebody tells you they're in pain, you just got to take their word for it. Or if someone tells you I'm sick, you just got to take their word for it. So that you can see that there are a lot of problems with that, and even with me, I hear that and it's like, well, somebody could be lying or somebody could be, the automatic assumption is a person could be lying about it, or trying to get attention or something. And that's immediately where our minds go when we think about chronic pain or invisible illness. But in my own experience, I've had a lot of issues with this, especially because of my Lyme disease. And I've spoken to a few people that have Lyme, and it's basically it's very common, especially when it comes to Lyme and probably other illnesses like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. I know people that have like lower back pain, arthritis. They all have the same dynamic with their friends and family where people don't really believe them very much. So, I just kind of wrote a few things about this. The fact that our illness cannot be seen has a big impact on our family dynamics. People with Lyme, fibromyalgia, and CFS often have to fight to be believed. The fact that doctors are skeptical doesn't help and only makes matters worse. Being denied disability benefits also adds to their doubt. So if your doctor cannot diagnose you with anything, then that's just going to validate your family and friends saying that there's nothing wrong with you, and that's not necessarily true. And I will tell you guys about my experience. And then if you're denied disability benefits, that's another added quote-unquote piece of evidence that you're not really sick. Thank you for the hearts, by the way. So, you have all of these different things compounding on each other, a lack of a diagnosis, being denied disability benefits, the fact that your illness can't be seen, and all of that basically shows that, your illness isn't real. It doesn't exist because there's no evidence. And, what we've learned is that that's not necessarily true. Exactly. It makes you question your sanity. And that's definitely something that's happened to me over the years. So I was diagnosed with Lyme disease in September of 2012. So it's 2016. It's been almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years this September. I've been sick for 10, almost 11 years. But I was diagnosed only 3.5 years ago. So that leaves about, what is that? Let's see, 11 minus 4, like 7 years or so where there was no diagnosis. I did have symptoms. I had symptoms the whole way through, and I would just get sick. I would have infections, recurrent infections. Things were happening to me. Things were definitely happening to me the whole time, but they were things that could not be seen. I started with severe pelvic pain, then like stomach issues, like reflux issues, and all that stuff really can't be seen. You can't really see it. So, I would tell people, I don't feel good. I feel nauseous. Yes, I do have insomnia. The insomnia has actually been the worst in the last few years, but during the course of my illness, I didn't really have it. Hi, Dianica. Welcome. So, I started complaining about my illness when my senior year in college. And, I was in a lot of pain. The pain was really strange because it was like lower back, gluteal pain, pelvic pain. Your pelvis is like deep inside of you, so it's not really, it's not external. It's almost internal. And, I started complaining about that and going to the doctors. The doctors didn't find anything. And, telling my parents, I need to take a break from school. It was my last year. Hi, JTLA. It was my last year of school, and, I basically told my parents, I said, I got to take a break because I'm in a lot of pain. I can't focus. I don't know what this is, and I don't know what to do. But they were like, no, you're not leaving school. Yeah. I mean, at the time I didn't really know. And sometimes ignorance The fact that I didn't have a diagnosis, sometimes that you kind of say, okay, I don't have a diagnosis, you mentally sort of fight it. And, I basically, my parents were telling me, no, they didn't say the doctors aren't finding anything. My parents just already had in their minds, there's nothing wrong with you. And of course I couldn't provide any evidence. So I made it through my senior year. Hi, Silosh, welcome. I made it through my senior year. Kicking and screaming, but I did it, and I graduated. I was in a lot of pain. My body was just, I lost weight. I lost weight because, the pain and all the other issues, just, compounds on each other. But I was never heavy or overweight to begin with. So I guess that just sort of, losing weight didn't really make any difference to my parents. So I think, over the years, I kept having this issue. The weird thing was that eventually I found a physical therapist. She works on the muscles of the pelvic floor. And she was the one that told me, she said, you're really, really bad. She said, you're one of the worst patients, one of the most severe patients I've ever had in my practice. So I had one person that believed me. Everybody else did not. Doctors could not find anything. My parents, my brother, everybody was like, no, there's nothing there. But I had one physical therapist that said, you are in really bad shape. So she rehabilitated me as much as she could. And, that was a couple of years of physical therapy. And I sort of plateaued, and then I started to pursue other things. Every time I would go see a doctor, it was just screaming and yelling, and why are you going to a doctor? Why are you going to go see this person? They're not going to help you. They're taking your money. They're cheating you. And it was my money. I wasn't, no one in my family has ever financially helped me with any of my health issues. But they always had to give their 2 cents. And so they would tell me, why are you doing this? This is stupid. You're just being cheated and this and that. And eventually it was like, I'm in pain. When you're in pain, you don't care. Even if you do get swindled, even if people do cheat you out of your money, you don't care because you're so desperate for relief that you're just at that point where it's like, I don't even care. But the good thing was that I did find, help from, I found help from psychologists, from physical therapists, from, whoever I eventually could find. It just took a lot of searching and it took a lot of money. But I ran into this over and over again. After the pelvic pain, I got a really, really bad stomach infection. And I told my parents, or my mom mostly. My dad kind of has stayed away from this, completely. He just doesn't deal with any of these issues at all. And I told my mom, I said, I'm really sick. And again, I was like, really skinny, probably worse than this. And I was like, something's wrong. I don't feel good. I can't eat. I'm really nauseous. I feel like something is chewing me from the inside out. I literally felt like something was chewing at my stomach. And again, it was the same thing, screaming and yelling. There's nothing wrong with you. Don't go to the doctor. What's your problem? There's nothing. But this time, they did find something. And I went to the doctors. I got a blood test done, and they said, you have this stomach infection, and we need to treat it with antibiotics. And so that was, Marisol 1, parents 0, it's almost like you start keeping score of, when they actually find something, or when someone validates, that you're sick. And little by little, it was like, I know there's something wrong. After that stomach infection, I noticed that my body was never the same again. And that was sort of the turning point for me, where I started noticing that if something did happen to me, I would find a treatment for it, but my body never went 100% back to where it was. And each thing sort of compounded on each other. So, and of course, my current neurological issues, my light sensitivity, muscle issues, things like that, you can't see any of that. So, and those things, there are no tests really for those things. But I think there's a lot more that goes into this. It's not just, yes, it's the type, yes, I'm hoping that there's a cure. The muscle symptoms I will talk about, I think this coming Sunday, I'm going to talk about that. And I'll elaborate on what that is. And that's actually something that I'm exploring recently because I really want to figure out what it is. No one has ever given me an explanation for it, and there's got to be an explanation for it. So I think there's a lot of different things that contribute to this. Hi, Stefan. Welcome. Long time no see. I think part of it is Lyme disease. Biggest issue is, muscle problems and insomnia. Yeah, the insomnia is sort of, it's been the last few years, and it's just killer. I hate it. I hate it so bad. And I was a perfect sleeper before this happened. I would sleep through earthquakes. Perfect sleeper. Ambien. Okay. Yeah, I don't take Ambien. I'm afraid of taking, I'll talk about my supplements as well. I'm going to have another scope about my supplements. So I'll go into that. And I might actually do a scope on insomnia as well. So, Lyme disease is very, because the diagnosis is, the diagnosis and treatment is very, very poor right now. There aren't really good blood tests for it. I think that adds to the extra disbelief about that illness. And the fact also that doctors themselves say there's no chronic Lyme, this doesn't exist. So you actually have people saying it's not real, it doesn't exist. So then your family is like, well, there's doctors saying that it doesn't exist, so it doesn't exist. But to compound on top of that, I think there's a lot of cultural factors. And I believe Carlos, who's in here, Silos, we talked about, our culture. I'm Mexican. My parents were born and raised in Mexico. They came to the United States in their teens, but they have a very, very specific philosophy about healthcare. And that's just part of ignorance. They don't believe in it. They don't believe in going to doctors. They don't believe in taking care of yourself. They don't believe in diet and that kind of thing. Half of my mom's family is all obese. My dad's family suffers with mental health issues. So, you've got these different dynamics of people that, that just neglect their health and don't really seek any type of treatment for it. So that's, cultural and family, expectations. Yes, Mexican families are very pessimistic. They believe that, it's just stupid. Why are you going to go to the doctor? It's stupid. They're not going to tell you anything. They're just taking your money, or they just want to, push pills on you. And that's not necessarily the truth. I think also too, it's poor coping skills, denial. They just don't want to accept it. They don't want to accept it. They don't want to accept that their child is sick, and that's understandable. Nobody wants to accept that their child is sick. But I think part of that is that they feel guilt, and they can't cope with that guilt. They're not sick. They don't have a chronic illness, but their child does. And that makes them feel guilty. So guilt is definitely involved in this. And if you deny that person their illness and you say it doesn't exist, then it sort of takes away some of that guilt. And I think guilt is just a huge, huge thing. And there are also just people, there are people that just are narcissistic, and you're going to encounter a lot of these people, people that are just full of themselves, and they truly do not have the ability to empathize with anybody else. They literally lack that ability. And I have a few narcissistic people in my family that just really, the world revolves around them. They have no concept of other people's pain. And there are people that just, their brains are literally built like that. They cannot empathize and put themselves in another person's shoes. And, you know, as I talked about my ex-husband yesterday, and my ex-husband has a psychiatric condition, a diagnosed psychiatric condition that's supposed to be treated with medication. And when I researched his condition, one of the symptoms is that they absolutely do not have the ability to empathize with other people. There's a brain chemistry issue that literally makes them incapable of empathizing. Yes. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do have to understand and research other people's issues. You know, my mom is kind of a narcissist. You know, I had to read up on narcissism, and narcissists do not empathize. They are unable to empathize with other people. They just don't. You know, people with ADHD, my ex-husband has ADHD, they are physically incapable of empathizing with other people if they're not on medication. You know, so it isn't that they are cruel or that they're intentionally trying to hurt you. They just do not have that ability. They lack that ability. And that's, you know, it's unfortunate, but that's what happens. Also, the way that a person looks. This is another factor I think that really, really hugely counts against people with Lyme disease. And the coordinator of the Lyme group here in Los Angeles, she's this beautiful, tall, blonde. She's beautiful. She's gorgeous. And I remember looking at her and thinking, wow, you know, you're so pretty and you're, you know, intelligent and smart and, you know, strong. And I was like, wow, you know, and another person actually told me how sick she was because she's actually been recovering. She's getting better. But another person in the group was like, yeah, she was at the point where you couldn't understand what she was saying. She was on so much pain medication. You know, she just was, she couldn't even put a sentence together. And I was like, wow, you know, you would never know that. And I mean, on top of the fact that she's gorgeous, you know, and she's not an elderly lady. She's probably maybe in her 40s. And she's just this blonde, you know, beautiful lady. And I think that really works against a lot of us. Being young, being attractive, being slender, you know, that kind of thing. It just works against us. There's another lady in the group that she said she was overweight and she lost, I think she went from like a size 14 to a size 6 or something. Yeah, you know, most people with Lyme disease look relatively okay. This lady went from a size 14 to a size 6, so I'm sure people assumed, wow, you know, she's turned her life around and she's healthy now and she lost weight. And it wasn't that she, you know, decided to get healthy. She lost weight because she got sick. And when I've seen her, yeah, she's pretty, you know, she's tall and skinny. I would never have guessed that she was like a size 14 at one point. So yeah, you know, the way that you look can definitely work against you. And also it influences how people act towards you. You know, you look healthy, so I'm just going to treat you like a healthy person. And if you're complaining that you don't feel good, you know, that's total BS because you look fine. You actually look really good, you know, and I think that happens a lot. That happens a lot, especially with dating, when people see, oh, this person is attractive, you know, I'm just going to treat them like I would any other person. And sometimes, you know, that can go wrong. So, you know, looking like that really doesn't help. Not that I would want to look terrible, you know. I do my best to try to look okay, but I mean, sometimes it just works against you. So like I said, there's guilt, and there's a lot of other things that go into it as well. We as sick people, because we have no diagnosis sometimes, we try to cover it up. And this paper that I showed you guys, the narrative review of the impact of disbelief in chronic pain, it tells you all the different things that people do when they don't have a medical diagnosis. So they avoid seeking medical help because they don't want to be labeled as a hypochondriac. They cover up their symptoms. They lie about their symptoms. They don't want to be stigmatized, so they hide things. And all of that leads to really severe emotional and psychological problems. It also reduces your pain sensitivity. And one thing that I've learned, and this is something also specific if you have a narcissistic parent, you don't interpret pain properly. And I started realizing this in this past year, that even if I'm in pain, I don't interpret it. You know, if somebody asks me, what's your pain scale? I'll say, 5, when it's actually really like 7 or 8. And that's a byproduct of being a child of a narcissist. I actually read that in a book about narcissism. And, if you have a parent that's narcissistic, or if you just have family that doesn't believe you, that can lower your actual ability to interpret how much pain you're in. So if you go to the doctor and they say, how much pain are you in on a scale of 1 to 10, you'll say, oh, like a 4 or a 5, when it's actually 6 or 7. So that's something really, really crucial to pay attention to, that the fact that people are discrediting you is affecting your own personal interpretation of your own pain. And I think that can be very, very dangerous. In my personal experience, I went way too long sort of ignoring my own symptoms and my own problems. And, I would go to a doctor here and there, and they would give me a simple remedy, and then I would let it go. I wouldn't continue pursuing, even though I was having health issues every couple of years or every year, I never put the pieces together and thought to myself, there's something really wrong with me here. And that was because I was told there's nothing wrong with you, or it's not a big deal, or, it's not a problem. And now I'm in a situation where I didn't recover. I went through Lyme disease treatment. It didn't go well. My illness, I think, has just developed too much. And now I'm in a situation where, I may never get better. And again, that's what's in this paper, that, we sort of ignore it, or we cover it up, or we deny it because we're being told that it's not real. So that can be very, very, very dangerous. Every time I go see a new doctor, I come out of there depressed. Did the doctor tell you that? Did the doctor tell me what specifically? So yeah, so all of those things combined, I just stopped seeking treatment, or I would that you may not recover. Well, my doctor, she dropped me. So that was a huge indication. And she was highly, highly recommended by several people, and she dropped me. So when a highly qualified doctor drops you as their patient and basically tells you, get out of my office, that's not a good sign. I have a feeling, though, that she, I think there's some stuff that she just, there's it's a lot of politics, but I might do a scope on that. I don't really like to talk about her too much, but I might do a scope about that, because I think there's a lot more to it. There's problems on both sides of the issue, in my opinion. There's problems with, Lyme literate physicians, and there's problems with, your regular run-of-the-mill doctors that don't really know about Lyme disease. So yeah, it may not happen to you. It just depends. It depends on how difficult you are to treat. But like I said, that's a whole other subject. I might get into that in a different scope. So There was something that I read really interesting in that essay, and it says, to complain too much is to risk undermining one's authenticity and one's credibility. But underplaying one's illness may be to risk not being taken seriously. So this is basically the paradox. This is where we get stuck. If we complain too much and we say, I'm hurting, I'm sick, I don't feel good, people are like, you're complaining way too much. You're definitely lying. But if you don't complain enough, and if you, like I did, I underplayed my symptoms and sort of ignored them, then you risk people not taking you seriously or not getting a diagnosis. Well, they're not complaining that much, so they probably aren't sick. So if you complain too much, you're a liar. If you're not complaining enough, you're not sick enough. And that's the paradox. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I think that's where we kind of throw in the towel. I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't, basically. So that was something that I thought was one of the best things that I read from this essay. It just sums it up perfectly. So what happens? What happens when all of these things happen? When you're being told that you're not sick by a doctor, when you're being told that you're a liar by your family and friends, it's a lose-lose situation. It definitely is. But what happens? What are all of the repercussions of this? What happens to us? Basically, there are 3 different types of isolation that are experienced as a result of chronic illness. There's the isolation from your family and friends, that they distance themselves from you because they don't believe you. So that's one type of isolation. There's your actual physical isolation because of your disability. For example, my light sensitivity prevents me from going, to restaurants or to the movies or on dates and stuff like that. So that's physical isolation, that your physical state actually prevents you from doing things. And then there's the 3rd type of isolation, which is when you hide your illness and your pain in order to avoid being stigmatized. And that's more like psychological isolation. You feel isolated in your head as opposed to actually being physically isolated. And all of that leads to psychological problems for those of us who have these invisible illnesses. So we experience guilt, depression, and distress after being disbelieved. So whenever I go to a doctor's appointment and, they basically tell me, I had a doctor recently tell me, because I told her I had lost weight in the last couple of years, and she said, if that was deliberate, was your weight loss deliberate? So basically she's saying you did that by yourself, right? You dieted or you starved yourself or whatever. And so I walked out of that appointment feeling really, really depressed and really upset and just like I wasn't getting anywhere. And that leads to a lack of control. We have a lack of control over how to prove our pain. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, immediately they just jump to conclusions because they don't want to deal with you. They don't want to deal with an actual possible diagnosis that something could be wrong with you. So then we have a lack of control. I'm in pain and I'm sick, but I have no control over it, and I have no control over what a doctor tells me. And, that sucks. I mean, anybody that deals with a chronic illness, you have no control. You lose complete and total control. There's another lady on here with lupus. Her name is Hurricane Kelly. You should follow her if you have any kind of chronic illness issues. And she said that. She said, every day is different. If you if you have a routine, a daily routine, she said your routine goes out the door when you have a chronic illness. No, those were 2 different doctors. Those were 2 different doctors, believe it or not. And I mean, if you have an invisible illness, you get stuff like that all the time. So it's just every single doctor will tell you something different. But if you guys follow Hurricane Kelly, she'll tell you she has lupus, And she's like, you can't follow your routine. Your routine goes out the window because every day is different. You have no control over your symptoms. You have no control over how you're going to feel on any given day. So, that's just, it was totally true. She summed it up in a nutshell. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with her more. And then there's frustration and anger when you come across a barrier in your pursuit of health-related goals. So, for example, right now I'm seeking a neurologist. I'm seeking a specific type of test. Hi, Brian. Welcome. I'm seeking a specific type of test to see if I have a specific type of neurological condition. And hi, how are you? And when I went to this neurologist, the one that told me about, are you losing weight because you want to? I was seeking a specific test on a specific part of my body, and she just wasn't going to do it. She absolutely was not going to do it. And she was going to run the test on a completely different part of the body that doesn't have this specific issue. And I told her, no, I want the test done on a specific part of my body where I feel this problem. And, it just wasn't going to happen. And I left there, feeling totally depressed, feeling frustrated, feeling hopeless. Hopelessness is such a huge, huge thing. And that essay or that paper that this thing that I told you guys to read, it talks about how a lot of people with chronic health issues have suicidal ideation. And basically that's just the fancy term for suicidal thoughts. When you go to a doctor and they're basically putting all of these barriers in front of you and telling you no, 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 you leave there feeling completely hopeless and feeling like I'm never going to get better. There's, I'm not even going to get a simple test that I want. And your mind starts to go to all these different places that, that you really, it shouldn't be going. But that's actually a huge, huge issue. And I think it's a very, very frightening issue. And as I've mentioned before, people with Lyme disease do commit suicide. One of the worst cases that I heard of was a girl walking in front of a train. So you know that you're in pain when walking in front of a train is the way that you want to go. If your daily life, if walking in front of a train is better than your daily life, that's a real serious issue. So yeah, that's definitely, and a lot of this happens, you're depressed as a result, as a direct result of your illness. Lyme disease impacts, it's very sad. It's very sad, but it's also like eye-opening. Like, how much pain was this person in on a daily basis where walking in front of a train was a better solution? I can only imagine how sick she was. So, it just, all of these things just accumulate and they make you feel like, life is over. There's no reason to go on. And it's not necessarily true because things can change. Things can change and you never know. But, I've had all of these things happen to me. I've had doctors, I've had family members, even after a positive blood test, even after evidence that I have a condition, I've had people deny it. You need to get another blood test. You can't just have one blood test done. You need to get multiple blood tests. This isn't accurate. I've had people just ignore me, when I'm talking and I'm saying, and a specific example, I handed my mom the blood test and she grabbed it, threw it on the couch, and then started telling me about her boss's daughter and how she had a miscarriage. So it's just denial. It's just total denial. I've been called a psycho. I've been yelled at by doctors. I've been told, stop calling me. That you don't have anything. Stop calling me. I've been told you're fine, you don't have anything, basically. Um, I've noticed that I have, sometimes I have issues when people invite me to go out somewhere, or they say, let's meet up. And this was something that I read about in this paper, where there's something called felt stigma and enacted stigma. And basically, felt stigma is the fear of being stigmatized. So sometimes I avoid making friends or going out because I'm afraid of people judging me and stigmatizing me. And that's just felt. That's me. That's in my head. I'm just already assuming that somebody's going to stigmatize me or judge me based on my illness. Whereas enacted stigma is actual discrimination, like the things that I just described that the doctors were telling me and that my family is telling me. So there's two different types, and I've noticed it lately. It's like I don't want to meet with people, or I don't want to make new friends or go out because I feel that people are just going to automatically judge me and say, that she looks fine. There's nothing wrong with her. I did meet up with one girl from Periscope, and she was basically telling me, you look great. You're skinny, but so many people are skinny, and people come in all different shapes and sizes. And I mean, she was just trying to make me feel better. She wasn't discrediting my illness. She was just trying to make me feel better. But it also, in my mind, it was felt stigma. Like, oh, I look fine. People think you're blowing them off. Yeah, people think I'm blowing them off, or that I don't like them. But it is just that, it's felt stigma. I'm afraid that, they're going to see me and, stigmatize me. I went out to a bar last weekend and with another person from Periscope. And after I left, I survived. I actually made it through like an hour and a half. I was in there, there was, the lighting was kind of so-so. But then I left and I was like, this person is going to think I'm okay. They're going to think I'm okay because I actually was in the lights. Like, but I'm not okay. I can't do that all the time. And they're going to think that I'm fine. They're going to think that I'm a liar because I actually stayed at the bar for an hour and a half. And this goes back to if you complain too much, it's a problem. But if you don't complain enough, it's also a problem. It's that catch-22. And granted, I survived the bar and I had a drink, and hi Froggy, welcome. I survived, but I can't do that all the time. And yeah, I did have a headache, at the end of the night. But then it's like it's working against me. Now they're going to think I'm okay, and they're going to keep inviting me to bars, and they're going to think that I'm healthy, So I start becoming paranoid and thinking, but I am sick, and they're not going to understand that I can't do this all the time, or that I don't always drink. Even though I drank that day, I don't always drink. I'm not supposed to drink. But, it's all these things go through your head, and it's like, but I need to prove that I'm sick. I need to keep, showing people that I am sick. And people with chronic illnesses, we shouldn't feel that way. We shouldn't feel that way. We shouldn't feel so paranoid that people aren't going to believe us, because it's stressful. And other people don't. People with cancer don't have to do that. If they have a drink, they have a drink. They're just letting loose, Exactly. Even though you're happy, it doesn't mean that you don't have depression. Even though you have a smile on your face, it doesn't mean that you aren't depressed. It's still there. It still exists. People with mental health issues. I feel like this whole topic can also apply to people with mental health issues. Just because they go to work, just because they look normal, because they're slender or they're whatever, it doesn't mean that they don't have a legitimate mental health condition. My ex-husband is fit, he works out, he looks great, he's attractive. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have a serious psychiatric condition, and I'm sure people don't believe him either. but it's true. It's real. Um, so all of these things, these are things that go through my mind constantly. And, even when I'm out with friends, it's like, okay, what are they going to think? I went out with them once, so now they're going to expect me to go out again. What about movies? I cannot watch movies, actually. Well, technically, I have never, since I became sick because of the light sensitivity, I have not gone to the movies to watch a film. But I have tried projectors at home, and they do bother me. I think it's the type of light. I'm sensitive to fluorescent and LED lights. I think maybe an old-fashioned projector, maybe an old one might work, but I've just never tried it. I'm pretty sure that the light wouldn't agree with me at all. So it's just a lot of it's very complicated. Like I said, I went to a bar last weekend. I survived the night. Yeah, I kind of had a headache. But it's a once in a while thing. It's not something that I would do every single weekend. I had a couple drinks last weekend. Again, I survived. It's not something that I would do every weekend. And on top of that, it's like I feel like I have to prove to people, like, no, I can't always do this. I can't always go to bars. Maybe I could go to bars more if I wasn't so paranoid about what people thought. But, I also tell myself, you don't want people thinking that you're okay, because you're not okay. And my symptoms do fluctuate, and I might be worse next month, and then people are going to be calling me and saying, let's go out, let's do this, let's do that. And it's like, well, I don't feel well. I feel worse. So that's, there's so much that goes into it. And I think people that are not sick or that do not have these types of chronic illnesses, they don't really understand that. They don't understand that there are so many different things that we have to think about as chronically ill people, and also as people with an invisible illness, that we have all these things to consider on top of the fact that we don't feel well, and on top of the fact that we're managing our illness. There are all of these things, keeping up appearances, not offending other people, still having to be considerate of everyone else around us. And, I don't want to be high maintenance. Sometimes I avoid going to family parties or, stuff like that, because I don't want to walk into somebody else's house and tell them to turn off their lights. I did that a couple weeks ago when I went to this meetup group that plays board games, and he had his kitchen light on. And yeah, they're so loud, you can't really talk. I also have hearing problems too, so it's like I can't hear what people are saying. But I went to a meetup group, and the guy usually, he's very accommodating. He turns off all the lights, but he just happened to have the kitchen light on. And I was like, hey, can you turn the light off? And it's just, to me, it's just so embarrassing. It draws attention to me. People are probably like, what's wrong with her? Or she's high maintenance, or she's annoying. And again, that's felt stigma. I'm feeling that stigma, even though everybody else probably doesn't even care. And I've been told that too. People have told me, nobody cares. Nobody's paying that much attention to you that, that they're analyzing every little thing that you're doing. So yeah, it's true. Not everybody focuses that much. Sometimes it's just us as sick people. We think that everyone is overanalyzing what we're doing. So I read a couple things online, how to help other people understand your illness. And I think there's a few, I don't agree with these in my personal experience. Number one, it says start with your doctor. If you have to convince your doctor that you have a disease, you're with the wrong doctor. That's true. That's true. If you have to convince your doctor that you're sick, then that doctor isn't for you. But it may be hard to find a doctor that does believe you, or that does know where all of your symptoms are coming from. That is a very, very challenging thing. And I'll tell you right now, no doctor is going to be able to explain all of your symptoms, especially if you have multiple symptoms. even the most highly qualified doctor, like the doctor that I was with, I think she got almost everything down, but I believe that she did miss a few things. And I was convinced that she knew everything. And looking back now, it's like, no, I think she missed quite a few things, and that's what I'm exploring now. But I felt so hopeless because I felt that she had the answers to everything. And you have to keep in mind, no doctor has the answers to everything. Number 2 says, try talking to your coworkers or loved ones. If you have an invisible illness, this probably won't work. I've tried talking to loved ones. I started getting sick when I was working, I think 4 or 5 years ago. I had a job, and I told my coworkers, I said, something's wrong. They didn't care, and they didn't believe me either. Yes, nice talking to you, Brian. Thank you for coming in, and you can watch my other replays. I have a few replays up. And thank you for the hearts, guys. If you have an invisible illness, I wouldn't say hide it from people. If you don't have a diagnosis, there's gonna be a lot of resistance, especially with coworkers. With your loved ones, there may be some people that do believe you and that do sympathize with you, but with your coworkers, it's just a messy situation. I got nowhere. I still didn't have a diagnosis when I was working, but I was not feeling well at all. I was in pain. I mean, everything was just a mess, and I ended up losing my job. I ended up losing my job basically probably because I couldn't prove that there was something wrong. So, and it also depends on what kind of coworkers you have. Some coworkers are understanding, some are not. So it's basically a case-by-case basis. Each person is different. Number 3, invite a loved one to a doctor's appointment. My ex-husband went to a few appointments with me, and then he just didn't have the patience for it because of his mental health issues. My parents, my brother, my sister, no one ever met my former doctor, my Lyme doctor. And I was with her for 3 years. They never met her. They don't know what she sounds like. They don't know what she looks like. I invited them to go with me, and they basically said no. Sometimes they said no. Sometimes they said, oh, I have to work. Sometimes they would say yes, and then they would backtrack. They would backpedal. I was with her for 3 years. They never met her, not even once. So I don't know how much that would help. These are things that I found on the internet. I don't think they're foolproof, especially if you have an invisible illness. I don't know. I just think it doesn't. At the end of the day, the one thing that does help for me is letting it go. You have to let it go eventually. Stop trying to convince people. Stop caring so much. That can be hard. It's really hard to just stop caring what other people think. But when I started reading up about my ex-husband's issues, when I started reading about my mom's issues, that helped me to let go. Because basically those books told me, you got to drop it. Because they have their own issues and they are not going to be able to process what you're going through. And I think there's a lot of people with Lyme disease in particular, because it's still not widely accepted. People with Lyme beat their heads up against the wall trying to convince everybody. And I've just realized that you just have to let it go. And ever since I did that, yes, you can't make everyone happy. Or anyone, to be honest. But I just came to that conclusion that I had to let it go. I had to drop the subject. And I've been happier since. I'm not extremely happy, but I've been feeling better about it. And some people will actually ask me how I'm feeling. Or they'll ask me things about my illness because I just dropped the subject. So to me, that's the number one most important thing, is just letting it go. If people don't want to know, if people are not interested, don't talk to them about it. Don't educate them about it. Educate yourself, but don't keep pushing the issue with people that don't care. So, I think that's it. My alarm is going off, so I think it's about time to call it. But thank you guys for joining me again today. I don't know what topic I'm going to have tomorrow, but I'll try to make it something good. But thank you guys. I really appreciate you coming in here. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for the shares. Like I said before, visit www.ucaring.com/Marisol has Lyme. I'm accepting donations till the end of May. You too, Silosh. Have a good day. And share the page with your friends. Share it on Twitter, on Facebook. I don't have a Facebook anymore, so that's unfortunate. But share it with everyone. And follow me on Twitter, HotSun100384. Thanks again, you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.